Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of The Cosmic Force. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Reganti, and tonight we have our first manga roundtable for The Edge of Balance. We have a new concept art book announced from a surprising publisher, and we have new books in the weekly pull list. But first, let's go around the room and say hi to the rest of my team here co-hosting with me tonight, starting where we always do. Emma, how's it going over there? You mentioned that you had done some rearranging of your Funkos in the background. So what are we looking at over there?
I did. I made sure that everybody can see them tonight. I got the entire wave of the new Mandalorian Funkos in the mail.
We're not talking about those.
They're so pretty. I got the Bo-Katan Chase up there. I still haven't decided if I'm gonna keep her in the box yet. I don't know. We'll see. She's staying in there for now. The Dark Trooper, surprisingly awesome Funko. My favorite one, other than Bo-Katan, of course. I love Bo-Katan and Ahsoka, but helmet off Mando holding Grogu. So good.
All of my Mando line ones have been delayed. They were supposed to start arriving this week, and they've been delayed. I see some of your Bad Batch, which I've tried twice now to order. I've tried from both Target, and those got canceled. And then I tried from Big Bad Toy Store, and they're still whatever Big Bad Toy Store is doing. I'm not getting them. So yeah.
You're on a list somewhere saying,
it's
don't send this man Funkos.
Funkos is kind of a sore subject for me and Eric. I see Eric in the chat. Yeah. We live in pain. So, all right. Next up, we have Caleb. Caleb, how are we doing tonight, sir?
Doing really well. It's a rarity that I actually had the physical book in hand, since I'm usually Mr. Digital over here, but I got this here. I think I read this before all of you guys did, so I've had much longer to forget about everything. So I might be a little slow on some of these points, but I think we're in for a good time here. I think we're gonna have a real lively discussion.
It's gonna be a discussion. We'll get a little bit more into that in a little bit, but first, let me introduce the final member of our team tonight, our producer, Jacob. How is law school treating you this week?
Well, this week was actually fall break, so honestly pretty fantastic, if I do say so myself. I really wish all weeks could be like this, but that's not how it works. I will say, before we get too off topic, I don't think you can complain about the Bad Batch Funkos, because I had them in hand like 2 or 3 months ago, being like, Tyler, I can mail you the whole set right now, and you're like, no.
But I already have
no, I got them from Target. It's gonna be fine. Target, like, nothing can go wrong.
This was prior to me realizing how awful Target and Funkos. It's just a bad marriage.
$15 a piece, whole set right there. Could have been taken care of. That was
well, I had them pre-sale for like $9 a piece. Okay, I care about those $3.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Here's the lesson, folks. You're gonna order it right away on Big Bad Toy Store. Just shell out the extra $2 or whatever.
Yeah.
And you'll get them right on time. That's the lesson.
Yeah.
As they say, 2 Funkos in the hand is worth more than 1 in the bush, or whatever, how that goes. I don't know.
All right. We are way off rails, but so hopefully if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We're still talking about Star Wars stuff, but normally we do talk about comics, because we are a Star Wars comics podcast that broadcasts live right here on youtube.com/Utini every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. If you can't join us live, that is perfectly fine. All of our videos are available on the Utini YouTube channel for you to watch whenever you want to. We are also on all of your favorite podcast platforms. So if you prefer to listen to us in audio form, we are available there as well. We are a part of the Utini podcast network of nearly a dozen shows and a Discord channel at utini.com/Discord with more than 1,000 members with dozens of channels to choose from. And if you like what you see and you want to say thanks, then head over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Utini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Utini podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community involvement activities. So before we get into the main show, we do have one interesting piece of news. This is a good interesting. And I'll go ahead, Emma, and let you kind of share this fun and interesting piece of news with us.
Yeah, so we have newly announced, like a few hours ago, the Art of Star Wars Visions, and that's exciting in and of itself. But
Mhm.
the company that's publishing this is very interesting for our comics subject. It's going to be published by Dark Horse. So that's really interesting. I believe they did the Jedi Fallen Order one and maybe the Star Wars Rebels one, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, getting a Visions art book, I think it's going to be amazing. And yeah, pretty excited that Dark Horse gets involved every here and again.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know about the rest of you. I usually lean on you all, especially Jacob, to kind of give me this sort of insider news. So this was a bit of a surprise to me, a welcome surprise, because I loved Visions. I mean, even though the episodes that I wasn't high on, I still had an appreciation for. So the more that we can get, and the more and concept art stuff is I eat that stuff up. So this I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I love all the art books. I'm a little bit addicted to them, so I think I have all of them from the Disney era.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot, but they're so lovely to look at, and I love behind the scenes stuff. I'm gonna have to watch for those that don't know, like if you go into the extras tab on Disney Plus on Visions, they have like behind the scenes extras. I didn't know that, so I'm really excited. I got some more stuff to watch.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, those are I haven't watched any of those either. I think they're only like 3 or 4 minutes piece. But yeah, and then this new art book, Emma's going to be adding it to her. This comes out on April 12th, so she'll get it April 12th. Eric and I will get it June 17th. And we'll just have to deal with Emma getting it before the rest of us. So all right, let's go ahead and get into the main part of the show tonight. And we start with the weekly pull list. And we've got 2 very unique and interesting entries this week. So Jacob, what do we have this week?
Yeah, we were gonna have a lot more this week, but there were a few delays. So luckily this week's not quite as packed, but we have the High Republic Adventures number 9, Back Together and Away Again, Part 2, written by Daniel Jose Older, with pencils by Tony Bruno, colorist Rebecca Nalty, and the letterer is Joanna Natalie. And then next we have Ghosts of Vader's Castle number 3, Danger on Dagobah, written by Kevin Scott, with pencils and color by Francesco Francavilla and Robert Hack, with the cover also from Francesco Francavilla, and the letterer is Sean Lee. As always, you of course can pick up those with Comixology in the links down in the YouTube description. And I have read High Republic Adventures number 9. I think was great. Have not gotten around to Ghosts of Vader's Castle. It's a little confusing when there are 3 very similar miniseries, and also a Lego short that came out this week is also in a similar vein. But
it's spooky season.
It's spooky. I have the Ghosts of Vader Castle's mini or issues. I think I'll probably just wait till they're all out, which is 2 weeks from now. So
I just want to know who that guy is on the front with the beard. He looks like that character from like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Like
either that. I mean,
the
I was
lumberjack.
thinking more. I was thinking
the
more
lumberjack. Yeah.
I was thinking more of a Gimli, but I mean, I can see the lumberjack. Yeah. This has not been on my pull list, but the Star Wars Comics channel in Discord has been all over this each issue. So I'm kind of disappointed in myself for not picking this up yet. But Jacob, you said you haven't read it yet. I haven't read it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Emma or Caleb, have you guys picked this up?
Not
yet?
the new ones. I have read like all the previous like Ghosts of and Tales of Vader's Castle, and they're really good. Like you might not think of it, but doing like Scooby-Doo stuff in Star Wars, but like each issue was, I think, better than like the one that I read before. So definitely worth it when you get a chance. So I'm excited for all this to be completed, so we'll be able to talk about it here in the end of the whole spooky season.
Yeah, I have it in my Comixology. I haven't had a chance to read that or the High Republic Adventures yet today, which is rare for me, I know. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I like all the, Tales from Vader's Castle, Ghosts of Vader's Castle, whatever the other one is. Yeah, they're all really great. Return.
Return the one shot was Shadows of Vader. I don't know.
Yeah, but I also like how in the front they like the author, like it was like creepy Kevin Scott and like freaky Francesca. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Just reminds me of like a Treehouse of Horror from The Simpsons.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it reminds me of. So, all right. Well, in order to go ahead and spend more time discussing our manga book tonight, we are going to once again skip our of the week. So, for those of you that have already, we will take that submission for next week. And if you haven't, then you have a little bit of extra time to get your submission in. But until then, we are going to go ahead and take a short merch break, and then we're going to come back and talk about our first manga review for Edge of Balance. So we'll be right back.
Darth Vader lightsaber lamp, and I just like I just knocked over everything in my office so I could get this into the camera shot. I knocked one of the posters off the wall.
Anderson cover. I have heard the Anderson cover described by some friends of mine as one of their least favorite Legends covers, and I don't totally know why. Maybe it's just because Depa Balaba has this dead stare in the background.
You know what it is?
Emma, what is your art of the week this week?
Yeah, so I don't have anything as dark and depressing as that corpse, but sweet.
All right, we are back, and like I said, tonight is our latest roundtable. We are doing Star Wars: The High Republic: The Edge of Balance, Volume 1. And Jacob, you've got kind of the stats and the nitty-gritty behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and let you tell our audience all about who it was involved in this book.
Right. So this is the first original canon manga we've had, and the first manga in the High Republic. It was written by Shima Shinya and Justina Ireland, with art by Mizuki Sakakibara. And this was published by VIZ Media on September 7th, although it was originally supposed to be released on June 8th, which interestingly was before The Rising Storm came out, but it was delayed. And then takes place on the Outer Rim world of Banshee around the same time as The Rising Storm in the timeline, and has a nice little bonus backup chapter called The Bansheeans, written by Shima Shinya, with art by Neizu Usugumo. So it's an interesting new story to come out of, for the first canon original manga volume. Lots of adjectives.
Lots of qualifiers.
I'm going to give it kind of a little behind the scenes of how we operate on the show. Normally, we do not, especially for roundtables, we do the four of us do a very minimal amount of discussions before the show. Mm-hmm. We want to leave it to the live discussion. We think it serves you all, the audience better, because we're able to react actively and in the moment and kind of and I think we think that provides a little bit of a better experience for you all. This book, on the other hand, I did have to reach out to the rest of the team here and just kind of get a feeler. And the reason I say this is because as we give our initial ratings, that was kind of the topic of my chat with the rest of the team, because I had some feelings on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with Emma first, and I want you to go ahead and give your initial rating on this book.
Yeah, so I definitely have some mixed feelings on it, though I think I might be the highest score, or it might be the highest opinion of everybody, maybe. I like that we're trying out new things with manga. I don't know if manga is for me, and that's okay. I think for some reason, the black and white, I had a hard time keeping track of things. Sure. And I just think it's because I've never read a manga before, and that's okay. I'm not going to knock it for that, but I think it made it hard for me to get into the story. I did enjoy the story. I think that it felt like there was a natural stopping point in the middle, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. It felt like maybe a little too long for what it was going for. But I did enjoy tie-ins to The Rising Storm. I enjoyed the depiction of the Drengir, which I know we'll talk about a lot later. I really liked Lily, the new Jedi. I mean, there's a few new Jedi in here, but her in particular, I think she's going to make for a very interesting character in the future. So after that very long preamble, I'm going to give this an 8.0 out of 10.
Okay. All right. So that's an 8. Caleb, I'm going to come to you next. What is your initial score on this?
Gut reaction straight off the barrel. I think 7.0. I think that's what I'm feeling. I don't think it's. I'm not going to say there's a lot of missteps in here. I don't feel like the story made a lot of mistakes. I just feel like there wasn't enough of it to make me satisfied with the story with that book. Reading it from beginning to end, when I got to the end, I was like, oh, that was okay. I guess that's all we got now. I guess there's a camp. I felt like it was an appetizer. And we do know a second volume is coming, so that's exciting. But I feel like it did a lot of like minor things for setting up things that might not ever get paid off. I don't know. Overall, 7.0. Just kind of like it. This might sound a little harsh, but this is probably the least good thing I've read from the High Republic that's come out yet.
Okay. That's an interesting observation. Jacob, coming to you next.
So this is tough. I was doubtful when Emma said that she was going to be the highest person rating here because I did like it, but I don't know if I can come up to an 8.0. So she's probably right there. I'm going to split the difference and probably go 7.5. I love the art, and I don't read manga, so I don't know if it's exceptional manga art or just that it's different and I like it. So therefore I'm rating it higher. But yeah, I think the art's fantastic. The story is a bit lacking. We were talking about this earlier, but it's it doesn't do that much for 100 some pages. It doesn't go as far as you would hope, and that's part of the medium. Not so much. I don't know with manga, but comics can, as much as we love comics can really drag story wise. Like it could take you 3 issues to like really do anything of substance at times. So like I get it, especially when it's the first volume that's setting up for future volumes. We'll see. But yeah, from a story-wise standpoint, I don't think it did as much as for me. I liked the planet and the setting they were on. I liked the art, but it just didn't quite come together for me.
All right. So this was hard for me. My initial rating, and I think that I'm gonna have room to come up here, is I'm giving it a 6.0. And I have 2 main thoughts on this. One, if you remove this book from existence, what does the High Republic lose? And I don't feel like it loses anything. You take away the Rising Storm, you take away the comics, you take away any of the other books, you lose a good chunk of content and character development, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit more critical of it. 2, we talked about prior to with the announcement of Visions that I believe Jacob, you had said it best when Visions looked like Star Wars themed anime, not anime themed Star Wars. This felt like a manga themed Star Wars. It didn't. I mean, and again, this is my first. I watch anime, but this is the first actual manga that I've read. But it felt shoehorned in, and maybe it's just because I'm not that well versed in reading manga. But I got through it, and I was like, and that was why I needed to reach out to the rest of you all, because I was like, am I missing something? Because I was underwhelmed, and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't something that I was missing that would have helped me critique it a little bit better. And so I'm hoping that you all can, we kind of touched on it a little bit. And Emma, I think you had said that you didn't want to talk about it too much in the chat because you want to save it for the show. So I really am hoping that you all can convince me a little bit, because it was there. So
yeah, I'm really excited. I think that this is the most excited I've been for a roundtable, and this says a lot because we've done a roundtable on Mutiny at Moncala. So this is the most excited I've been because I think that there's a lot to discuss here, and I think that there's going to be like we've got some differing opinions, which is kind of rare. Like usually we talk about something and we're like, oh,
Yeah.
that was good. And like I think we've got some differing opinions here. So it's gonna be a good conversation.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, the art was fantastic. I love the art, and that's why I love comics and I love manga. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and Caleb, I'm gonna toss it over to you so you can kind of get into the beginning of the story summary here.
Absolutely. The story kind of starts off with a bit of a bang and a crash as it starts on the world of Takala, where an emergence from the great hyperspace disaster suddenly brings ruin to the poor farmers, only to be fended off by our second favorite Jedi Master of the era, Jedi Master Stellan Gios. I'm not saying like I'm just saying that he's everyone's second favorite. Everyone's first favorite is probably completely different, but I feel like he's kind of like
Loading
a shoehorn.
Greatstorm.
Yeah, like everyone loves Loading Greatstorm. There's people who love Avar Chris, but
Ernestra.
exactly. But I
Well,
think
Master is the problem, though.
yeah,
We all
Master.
love Vern, though.
He's kind of, I feel like he's the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers of the group. It's like everyone's like, yeah, they're top 5 easy, but I don't think there's top 1 for anyone. Way off topic. Distant after Stellan Gios comes in and saves the day, we cut to Jedi Knight Lily Torasi with her master Arkov, the Wookiee, who are now transplanting survivors from that emergence disaster to the planet of Banshee, Branchi, to start a new life in safety under the Jedi Temple that's there. The trip goes very well. The sailors are very grateful, and we're introduced to Lily's Padawan, Kieran Fion, and the 2 younglings, Nima and Vivnia, into their small temple. Things seem to be going well. The transplants are excited to start a new life farming their lives, and Lily's meeting and talking with them and talks to the local doctor, Dr. Sylar, who asks her a very important question. Do you like it here? To which she does not really have an answer.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pick up the second half of the summary here. Yeah, she was feeling pretty vague on her thoughts about her opinions on Banshee. So yeah, life begins a normal rhythm again on the planet. But one of the villagers begins acting odd and stiff, like literally stiff. They found out that he turned into like wood. And yeah, the Jedi had investigated, and it was like, oh my goodness, he's wood now. I mean, it's like Medusa, but like with wood. So this was a prelude to a Drengir attack. And thinking quickly, the civilians are rushed to the temple as Lily and Kieran prepare a counterattack. So they were investigating in the forest, and they found some very large sort of clearings in the forest that were unnatural and couldn't be caused by any of the sized animals on the planet. And they were like, uh-oh, someone's here. It was the Drengir. So they lured the Drengir to the edge of town, and Lily used, and I'm going to quote the notes here, water bending with a strike through. So kind of water bending, but not really. She like waterboarded the Drengir, but like,
Oh, jet fuel.
yeah,
I thought it was more of like a something that
Like Star Wars kerosene, just
I have
Yes.
like literally
Yes.
no way to like describe it with my words, but she did something like water bending that was more intense. So she used the force to do that, obviously. She lit them ablaze and stopped their spread and ending their threat. During the cleanup, Stellan Gios arrives to take Master Arkov with him to bring the fight to the Drengir, leaving the protection of the temple in Lily's hands. And of course, Stellan tells them that around the time when they thought they destroyed the Drengir, they also destroyed the Great Progenitor, which we see in the Marvel comics. So Stellan is convinced that Lily and the other Jedi didn't actually kill them, but that it was the whole Great Progenitor thing. And then at the end, we see one of the villagers conspiring with the Nihil, and we wait until volume 2.
All right, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the characters, and we'll talk about the main one first. Lily Tora Asai. I say it Asai. I don't know if that's the way. We don't have Mark Thompson to tell us, so that's just how I'm going to pronounce it.
It's like a Han
Oh,
Han situation.
Yeah, exactly. So she is a Jedi Knight who has been promoted for a while and is dealing with a bit of an imposter syndrome. Doesn't know what her role is, and I did think that it was nice seeing a Jedi that wasn't really it was new to us, but it wasn't. We've gotten a lot of experienced Jedi in the High Republic, and we've gotten a lot of rookie Jedis. So this one definitely, Lily definitely was a little bit in the middle. How do we like her portrayal here? And including portrayal, I do want to talk about the art. So both as a character, how do we like her portrayal, and how do we like the way that she was drawn throughout the book? Caleb, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
I think she's definitely the standout character of this whole arc here. I said, like, as someone also in that, kind of thing of like, I've graduated college a lot, like I've been now, it's almost been 10 years since it has been over 10 years since I started college. So I'm like well into the workforce. I've got my job. It definitely feels like I relate to Lily a lot of like, I am confident enough in my abilities in my job of what I'm doing, but there I still can like look around and see like, people who are far above me, who are still, giving me information, pouring things into me. And yet I'm also being in charge of certain people. It's like, really, you're letting me be in charge of this, like this human being here? You really trust me that much? And there's like, I really like that sort of dynamic of seeing a Jedi who is confident enough in their abilities, but also kind of in a wishy-washy sort of thing. I think it's nice to see someone who is like legitimately struggling with, okay, where's my place in the world? Where's my place in the Jedi Order? And how do I kind of go from there? Like who am I, and how should I react to these things and these responsibilities that are put onto me?
Emma, so one of my first critiques, I didn't realize that she was as high off as she was based off of the opening scene. Between her and Master Arkov, I thought they were. I feel like she was Master Arkov's Padawan, but I felt like that was still their relationship until we met Kieran, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess she's a little bit more farther along. So that was like my first jolt there. I don't know, Emma, did you feel that way too, or were you able to kind of get in step with her she was as a character earlier than I did?
Yeah, I definitely had that first reaction, but I'm going to make the argument that was on purpose. And
okay.
And here's why. So I think that we're supposed to look at her in a similar way to how we view Vernestra, except she's just higher ranking. Like she's not so sure of herself, yet she has like a ton of responsibilities.
Right.
And I think that we're supposed to feel a little bit off balance in the beginning. And I think also like the way that she's drawn, she doesn't look very old, so we don't really assume that she's of high ranking. And I think that that's a really cool sort of mirror to Vernestra, who does look very young, and is of high stature, but we don't know it. I think that's just kind of like Justina Ireland's thing. I think that's very cool. So, and speaking of the way she was drawn too, I do want to mention her lightsabers gave me major Visions vibes, like the way that they were sort of doing something unique with the lightsabers. And as much as I love the uniqueness, like I truly do, I think, whenever you can do something new with lightsabers that are, pretty much always some sort of a metal thing with a glowing thing coming out of it, whenever you can do something unique with that, I think that's great. However, it was bothering me because what happens if she's like running? Like, is she gonna, like when we're looking at this picture right now, like, does she knock them out of the holster? Like what happens?
Well, the Force keeps them in place.
Of course. Yes. But yeah, I thought she was like a really cool character overall. And I'm really excited to see her growth, especially because now, at the end, we leave off with her sort of being in charge of the temple, even though she just went through this like big thing where she's like, I'm not sure of myself. I have no idea like what to do about a lot of things. I'm relying on Master Arkov a lot. I'm not very good with younglings. I don't feel comfortable in my abilities to teach, yet I am a teacher and I am looked up to. So I'm interested to see how she grows from that. And I think she kind of represents how a lot of people feel like at some point in their lives, whether you're like in college and you're not sure if you're doing the right thing, or you're working and you're sort of questioning your career choice. Like I think she's a very vulnerable character that a lot of people can find something about her to relate to. I think that's always great in a character.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and switch over to Lily's Master Arkov. He is another Wookiee Jedi, and again, I love the fact that we have more Wookiee Jedi. I think it's really cool. It does leave me questioning Chewbacca's sense of style and wardrobe, because every other Wookiee that we've seen in this era seems to have, I mean, granted, they are mostly Jedi and they all wear robes, but that Chewie was just walking around in a bandolier.
Saying Chewie's a streaker.
So I have some questions for Chewie, but that's for another time in another episode. There's this question here, and this question leads to one of my biggest issues with this. And I'm going to pose this question to you, Jacob.
I think I know what you're going to say.
The dialogue from Master Arkov, I could not stand the way that they treated his dialogue. I don't know how. I've never noticed how they treat Wookiee dialogue previously, but the way that it was answered, it was translated by whoever he was speaking to, asking the question back to themselves. Oh, how do I feel about this? That's a very good question. It really bothered me. So Jacob, I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts on that? Should it have been translated, or should it have been a little bit more of a streamlined, conversation like we normally have in the novels? Like, what are your thoughts on how the dialogue with Master Arkov was kind of portrayed in this?
Yeah, I definitely don't think it should be directly translated. I mean, like, going back to Chewbacca, that was never part of his character. It was, whenever he talks with Han or C-3PO, it's a lot of, he grunts something and then they give a response back, so you kind of you can infer what they said. And,
right.
You're seeing one half of the conversation, but you can kind of guess what the other half is, and that's how I prefer it. I would rather when it's doable, I prefer the writing style of not just being like, "What'd you? Are you asking what I had for lunch today? Well, I had this." I'd rather just say, I had a ham and cheese sandwich for lunch.
Right. 100%.
That extra bit of framing kind of takes you out of it a little bit. Yeah. Again, I would rather, I would prefer the ARG text bubbles, but it's a balancing act. I think an edge of balancing act, if you will. Yeah.
I think part of the thing is that in the movies, when Chewbacca talks, he's never giving expositional dialogue. He's just like reacting or saying, what you can assume are like one-liners or status updates. Like, yes, of course we got hit, Chewie. I know that. We all shook in our chairs. So like now that a Wookiee is like a huge like talking role, I do feel like this is a little bit of a missed opportunity. I guess it's better than Kashyyyk in KOTOR 1, when you go to that planet, it's just like, I'm gonna skip through all this dialogue, because having 4 hours of just Wookiee growls in my headset, that's too much. Like that was rough every time. But it, like, I did feel like it was they played a little bit like when every single line was followed up, like, well, I guess you're right, Master Arkov, yada yada yada, your said was really, really right. Like, I felt it was not enough to make me hate his character, but it definitely, like, he definitely seems like kind of like a less interesting Jedi Master because of it.
And I wonder if that's because are we not the audience for this? Are we too old, and do we have too much of our own ability to kind of understand unspoken dialogue, to where maybe the intended audience does need to have both sides of that conversation happen? And so if that's the case, then okay, maybe I'll go ahead and give it a little bit of a pass. I mean, the comics don't necessarily do that, but it was off, and it made the story very choppy for me. But you know, maybe there's a good reason for it. And like I don't necessarily know what the intended age group is for this. You know, I feel like it's probably in line, especially if it's coming from Justina Ireland. Maybe it is in line for kind of a young adult audience. So the dialogue maybe needs to be a little bit simpler than I'm used to, but it was a little jarring for me. So that was one of the things that I had some issues with.
I think one of the things that might have made it stand out to us a little bit more is that when a character in universe understands Wookiees, they wouldn't be giving the exposition in a conversation like that.
Right. 100%.
So I think it's just a product of needing to like fill in some of the blanks for the reader. But that does take you out of it a little bit. So I definitely see your point there.
So let's go to the next character here, Karen. He is Lily's Padawan, and he seems to be very overly curious and has many questions for Lily. Do we think that this is going to lead him down a bad path eventually? Emma, I'm going to toss this to you. I think that he is personally, but I'm going to kind of answer this question and then ask what your thoughts are. I think given where this book leaves off, excuse me, I think he's a perfect character for what the setting is and for where the cliffhanger is, where there's obviously some foul afoot on the planet. And I really would love to see him maybe kind of be his curious nature, kind of uproot that and kind of pull that out into the wide open. So I really enjoyed this character. But Emma, what are your thoughts on Kieran's curiosity in this book?
Yeah, I think here's the thing, like it came from a good place, but I also felt like, and I don't know if this is just because of Lily's character, but a lot of the times when they were talking to each other, it felt like whenever he was speaking, it was like making her feel really overwhelmed. Like, yeah. And I think that that's just like part of her personality, but it made me dislike him, which I know is not fair of me to say, but I don't know. I didn't really feel super drawn to this character. However, I am interested in some of the conversations that they were having about the Force and about being sure of yourself. Because Lily was being super open and honest, saying that she's not very sure of herself, whereas he really is confident in himself. And I feel like that could lead him down a very bad path, combined with his curiosity. He reminded me a little bit of Imri in his what am I trying to say here? He like, I don't know. I felt very Vern and Imri vibes from the pair.
I can see that.
And I think it might just be, I don't know, Justina's influence on this. It might be kind of Vern and Lily are unsure. Imri and what's his name? Kieran,
yeah.
Kieran, yeah. They're both not exactly on the straight and narrow all the time. They're not the quote unquote perfect Padawan. There's cause to be worried about both of them in some way. So yeah, I think I don't know. I think their dynamic was interesting. It didn't really feel like they were super close as Master and Padawan. I was also kind of interested, like in the beginning when Lily was with Master Arkoff, I was kind of wondering, like, why didn't she bring her Padawan too? Like, I don't know. There felt like there was a rift in their relationship somehow. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays out later on.
Exactly.
Would you have preferred more time with Kieran and Lily together? As
yes,
I think
very much so. That would have helped a lot of my issues. I think like they had some very deep conversations that lasted like 1 page or 2 pages. And it's like, I want more of this though. Like this is good, but those types of deep conversations, they can't be rushed. And I think that was, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That was exactly what I was trying to say. Like, you need to sort of take the time to either develop a relationship or show clearly that it's strained. And I feel like they kind of straddled the fence here.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like, for lack of a better term, like they kind of didn't do quite as good of a balancing job of like, well, I did think they did a good job of balancing out these discussions, but I feel like it would have been maybe better if it had been more like, let's talk about these master and apprentice sort of relationship that we have here. Because it seems less that they're like a master and apprentice. It is almost like Lily's like a big sister to him.
Yeah.
And the last time we saw like a sibling sort of thing like that was Obi-Wan and Anakin, and that didn't end very well. So I think we're going to get a lot more of him. He is on the cover for Volume 2. That's been confirmed. So they've already put out the pre-artwork for that. So he's going to be the cover character. So hopefully we'll see some more of him in the future and see where we'll watch his career with great interest.
Yes. Well, we've covered the master, we've covered the knight, we've covered the Padawan, and we can't leave the younglings out. So we had two younglings in this book. We had Nima and Vivnia. They seem so they were kind of put in here as a way to explore questions about training youth, training younglings as a Jedi, and raising children in general. I enjoyed the concept, the questions that Kieran asked Lily about having the younglings around and the uncomfortableness that children have. I feel that with my three children sometimes. It's just sometimes it's just they're there and it's just like, why? And why are you asking these questions? And I don't have time for these questions. But that was a very honest depiction of them. But I'm going to go ahead and ask the question, both in this and maybe as a whole. Feel free to take this question that way, this philosophical question that way, if you so choose. Are they being trained the right way? Do the Jedi train younglings in a proper way that puts them in a position to succeed? I'm gonna go. We haven't heard from Jacob in a little bit, so I'm gonna toss this one to you first.
I mean, at the start, towards the beginning, we did see Vivnia chuck a lightsaber at Lily's head. So, preliminary evidence suggests no. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, a lot of what we saw as far as training was kind of informing them of like the dogma and the methodology and reasonings behind why Jedi do what they do. And I generally don't think there's a huge issue with that. I think that's fine. I think I would say we'll see. We're seeing them being planted with the seeds of this is what it means to be a Jedi. You're a youngling now. You have time to grow and learn and mature. I wouldn't be shocked to see in Volume 2, or if there is a Volume 3, to see them finally be confronted with some challenge, and we'll see how that plays out. Is everything they've been learning gone to waste, or are they adequately prepared? I don't know. I think these characters were interesting, but I think more than unique, interesting characters, I think they're just a means to an end for Lily's character development. We have to see her come to terms with the fact that she's responsible for not just Kieran, which I if it was just her and Kieran, I think she'd be fine. But it's the fact that she also has these two these younglings that I think puts a higher burden on her, that she feels responsible for them as well in a very tender young age, a very impressionable age. So yeah, we'll see. I think they present an interesting mix to the story. But yeah, I don't know, they're fun.
The only younglings we've ever seen are younglings that were raised and trained at the temple. The only stories that we've heard, whether it's Obi-Wan's stories from like Master and Apprentice, or whether it's I guess not necessarily Anakin, or the Clone Wars, everything that we know about younglings in the training happens on Coruscant. So I don't think we're gonna get this, especially in this medium, as fast as the story went. The idea of training Jedi at a remote temple away from everybody else is a fascinating topic to me, and I would love to see more that topic explored more. But given how fast the story went, and given as I don't think that's what they're here for, I don't think we're ever going to get that. Emma, what do you think? I mean, Do you think we're going to explore them more, or do you think that as as Jacob said, that they're really here more as a prop to show Lily's growth as a character by the time the story ends?
Yeah, I'm glad you tossed it to me because I've been having a lot of thoughts as I'm sitting here listening to you guys. I have to say that they were my least favorite part of this book. I still have zero clue which one is Nima and which one is Vivnia.
Vivnia is the Togruta, right?
Okay, I got you. That, but also I feel like this is where some of my frustration with Kieran comes in. I feel like they're filling a role for Lily's character development that could have easily been filled by Kieran if they gave Kieran more time.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they have any role that couldn't be filled by any of our existing characters, and we already have a lot of new characters in here. However, I do agree with you, Tyler. It is interesting to see younglings being trained elsewhere other than Coruscant. The only sort of similarities that I can think of is Bell and Loden on Elfrona. He was a Padawan though. But I did like seeing them, training in a remote temple outside of Coruscant. I thought that was cool. I thought it was interesting how Lily kind of treated them very similar to Kieran. Like she just got overwhelmed with them very easily.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of glad that they're showing that. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. Like not everybody loves kids or like is good with kids. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure people can relate to that. I personally am not like Lily in that sense, but I'm sure that a lot of people can look at Lily and say, yeah, I totally feel awkward around kids too. Like they ask the most random questions and it stresses me out. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that they were just okay. I think maybe I was a little too harsh on Kieran because of my frustration with them. And then one last point that I'll make about them is that I didn't feel like, this might be like kind of an overarching thing, but I feel like it relates to them, is that I don't really feel like the writing was super consistent in terms of like the themes that they were trying to portray. It felt like at some point they were trying to show that Lily wasn't confident in herself and that she got overwhelmed really quickly. And then another time I was thinking that the theme had something to do with like how younger Jedi don't know how to handle themselves because of like improper training. And I don't know, it just felt a little bit back and forth to me. I know that's like super down compared to like what I normally say, but I
can see that. But how much experience do you have with anime or other Japanese and Eastern
visions? That's it.
So I can understand your thought process there. To me, it didn't bother me that much because that felt very Eastern culture. I've watched other anime shows and I've watched other no, I haven't read any other manga. But I've watched a couple of other shows where that dynamic is kind of not explained, but like it's there. So whereas you were a little bit caught off guard by it, it didn't bother me. The dualness of all that. Because I feel like how quickly that stuff is brought up and passed on and moved on to it's been in other shows that I've watched that are.
That's good to know though for me, because I don't want to knock it for something that, because I like that we're expanding into new mediums, and if that's like part of what manga typically does, I definitely don't want to knock it for that. I think me personally, I love to sit in a story. I love character development. And I think maybe manga just doesn't do that for me, I guess. I don't know. It's definitely interesting. And honestly, like, I hate that I haven't like watched more anime or read more manga, because I feel like maybe it would definitely change, my views on this, because I have, zero foreknowledge on it, but yeah, that's interesting to hear you say.
Absolutely. I got a couple things I want to bring up here. The first one was you mentioned about them being growing up and being trained outside of the Jedi Temple. And I suddenly had an image of them growing up as essentially the homeschoolers of the Jedi. You know, coming up for the knighting ceremony in their denim skirts and their homemade robes.
I'd read that.
Are you talking about homeschool kids or Pentecostals?
They can be really, really well intertwined. Depends on where you're from.
All right.
Yes, but yeah, homeschool Jedi, like that's got to be a subseries somewhere. The other point I wanted to bring up is, there's like a kind of a point like right in the middle during the Drengar attack where the two younglings are with the main group of the refugees of the farmers, and like they're facing down a Drengar, and the doctor there says like, no, you're too young, you do not have to fight this battle here, you're still a child. And it's that weird idea, like kind of conflict of like, yes, I'm a Jedi, I have a lightsaber, they gave me this weapon to kill things and protect people, but am I not yet available to put my life on the line to defend people? And honestly, I think the doctor's right. These are like preteens. They should not be like Jedi encouraging child soldiership is a bad idea. So
I wonder where we learned that lesson.
Exactly.
Right. That never ends well. All right. Well, we don't have any other. That's all the characters that we've called out. There were a couple of other characters, but unfortunately they didn't get names, so it's kind of hard for us to reference the guy that turned into wood or
Mr. Kubota.
Yeah. Well,
it's because it's named after a lawnmower. That's where I remember it.
So I'm gonna go. Caleb, you've developed some overarching questions that you wanted to ask the group. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the conversation over to you, and so you can ask some of your questions.
Exactly. I mean, I think the big one that's on everyone's lips, and this is one thing we discussed a little bit in the pre-show here, is we get a different vision of the Drengar in this series. So essentially of how a different look for them and how a little kind of a different way they attack and do things. But what do you guys think? Is this more terrifying or less terrifying than what we saw in the original versions? And I'll go ahead and put my 2 cents out there. These things are way scarier.
Yes.
Man, I have to say something. Like the first time I read this, I did not notice the field, and it had like body parts in it.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that, and I was rereading it yesterday. I was like, oh my god, there's like a foot in the field and stuff. I was like,
A
what?
few heads. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like it's way creepier to be turned into solid wood than to be like stuck through with some vines. Like what are these Drengir? What is happening? Like it blew my mind. I wish that the Drengir here, like in their just scary factor, were in the rest of, and I understand like, in like Race to Crash Point Tower, that's maybe a little bit too scary. But yeah, I really liked the intensity of the Drengir. I think that's one of the stronger points for me, because I've been very interested in the whole Drengir storyline throughout the entire High Republic, and to see they're sort of, I don't know if they're like evolving or like mutating, whatever it is though, it's scary and it's not going to be good for anybody. I'm scared for the High Republic. Yeah.
Like one thing we talked about is I feel like turning people into wooden statues is way creepier than mind controlling them. Because like with mind control,
which we've seen before.
We've seen that before, and we know, and when we see mind control, the problem is the trope is we know that we can snap it out of them. But when you're turned into a literal statue of wood, it's like, well, there's no going back from that. It was pretty creepy. Plus, their character design of the Drengar being a lot more lighter, it makes them look like they're a lot faster, less furry and fuzzy looking.
Yeah, like
other
like
than...
they looked leafy in the comics, like leafy, and then these ones were kind of like, I don't know, a little bit more viney, a little bit more monstrous. And the other thing too that we forgot to mention is that in this you get infected, or like, I don't know, infested by them through their spores and not their vines, and that's like That's creepy, especially in like, virus times, with a pandemic, and, you can like pick up respiratory droplets and then you get the spores of the Drengir. It's like, there's definitely some real world connections going on here. Yes, mask up, Jacob.
I felt like prior to this, the scariest, the biggest adversarial element of the Drengir was that they couldn't be easily killed. And if you chop a piece of them off, they just grow back into it. These guys, like, I remember when we did our roundtable for the first trade paperback for the High Republic comic, I was like, the Drengir, they're not, like, I don't get why they're here. They're not a big adversary. If these Drengir were in some of the novels or some of the comics where they're viney, they're secretive, they're turning people into wood, I would have a much higher opinion on the threat of the Drengir when it comes to the Jedi. I think the Drengir and the way that the Drengir were portrayed was the strongest part of this book. But I loved every part that was connected to the Drengir, from the assumption that it was in that container that the guy was holding, to it apparently mutated with the what was ever in the soil, or it like the reason they were so scary was because it had mutated with some of the local water. Like that starts to become very interesting, because if you can have Drengir, you can have a Delta variant of Drengir. Now you're talking about something that is a little bit hits a little bit too close to home, but at the same time, it makes them more interesting. And like I said, I love that part of this book.
Yeah, I have a feeling that we're starting to get into some science territory in the High Republic, and that makes me extremely excited. Like, let's get a space geneticist up in here. Can we do that?
I mean, the main protagonist of Light of the Jedi was a science nerd. So, I mean, like, Kevin Tarr is the real hero of the Republic.
Yeah,
Kevin.
That's true.
Mhm.
Kevan, not Kevin. Kevin's too boring. Kevin's too boring for a Star Wars name. It's got to be like Kevan.
Oh,
You
well,
gotta put
and
an extra consonant in there.
and there was a what was her name? Sylvester's mother was a hyperspace scientist.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we got some science going here, but let's get some biologists or some, like, I don't know. Let's just do it. This is coming from a biology major.
I was about to say,
of course,
so
I'm gonna be biased.
we need Lieutenant Spock in here. Absolutely. So another point here is that the temple on Brunchy seems like minuscule compared to the main Jedi temple. Just like you can count them all on like one hand. There's like the archivist, the master, the knight, her Padawan, and there's only one person and the two younglings there. So along with, it seems like the Jedi are doing a lot of these like smaller temples, because we also saw the temple in Elfrona, and that one just had about 5-6 people in there. Like, do you think the Jedi in this time period are experimenting with smaller outposts and doing small, like, lesser things out there? Or, is this, something that they've always done and then they will stop doing that moving forward towards the Clone Wars?
I mean, it's we've been seeing it a lot with the High Republic, because like the whole, or a big part of the story is kind of colonization of the Outer Rim, expansion of Republic territory. So to do that, you spread your influence through small Jedi outposts. I mean, it's not anything new. Like, I mean, we even saw it with Rebels on Lothal. I mean, there have always been smaller temples outside of like Ossus or Coruscant or whatever. So it's nothing new. I mean, obviously, you're gonna see the Jedi becomes more centralized over time, going towards the prequels. We talk about that in Dooku Jedi Lost, where it's like, I think it's not Wreath. Rael talks about it being much less common for Jedi to be outside of Coruscant, and how it skews your vision of the galaxy when all you know is like this almost like cathedral-like temple of the Jedi in the center of galactic power. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's yes. I mean that's it.
I mean,
I don't know what else to say.
We're also dealing with 1,000 years of peace, right?
Mhm.
So Jedi are not generals; they're hall monitors from a militaristic and aggressive, point of view. So you can either have 50 Jedi at, split up amongst, 4 or 5 different strongholds and have a more sizable force, or you can have them spread up across more thinly spread apart with at 25 different outposts. So, and I think at a time of peace like this, they're there to spread their positive influence, and they're be able to solve the small problems of the day that they're focused on. So yeah, it makes sense to me that we're gonna have, instead of having 10 temples with or 6 temples with 10 Jedi at each of them, we're gonna have 60 temples with 2 Jedi, because 1 or 2 Jedi can handle all of the issues that these backworld planets have to throw at them.
Nice. Okay, so yeah, I think having we talked a little bit about that one. Another thing about having this like giant temple here is it might be a bit of a target here, and that's one thing that was teased at the end, is that we are very clearly have a Nihil spy amongst the colonists, amongst the transplants here. Why do the Nihil care about the temple on Branchi? Like, is it just so that it can target it and cause chaos, or do you think the Nihil has some sort of plan moving forward?
I don't know.
This is kind of like a little bit of a tie-in to Race to Crash Point Tower, but like, so minor spoilers if you haven't read it yet. It's been out for a little bit, but I think it's interesting how the Nihil. Wait a second, I think I got it mixed up. In Race to Crash Point Tower, don't they like want to spread the Drengir? Okay. For some reason I thought they did it themselves, but I was like, wait a second, they can't do that themselves.
Yeah, they reference it in, I think, a little bit in the Rising Storm, and they talk about much more explicitly in Race Crash Point Tower and the end of this manga as well.
Okay, cool. I want to make sure I wasn't getting that mixed up, but I think it's interesting. I feel like they're trying to weaponize the Drengir, and I feel like maybe on these more agricultural worlds where they might blend in, the Nihil sort of see them as like the perfect target. Like, maybe they'll export a shipment of grain or something and then spread some Drengir to another world or something. I think that they're just like easy targets, but at the same time, like, I'm glad that we brought this up because I thought it was interesting that Lily started to have visions of the Nihil as well. There's been a lot of like Jedi having visions in the High Republic of bad things happening, and it happened twice where she saw a Nihil gas mask, and that was like really chilling to see, especially because it was kind of in the corner of one of the panels. And again, I didn't notice it the first time I read it. I noticed it yesterday when I was rereading it. I was like, oh, there's like a tiny little Nihil gas mask in the corner. She's in trouble. Oh god. So yeah, I think whatever the Nihil are planning on doing with the Drengir is going to end up being very interesting. And I'm also glad that they're not doing it all at once. They're not flat out saying what the Nihil's goals are or how they're working with the Drengir, or if they have some sort of deal with each other. Like, you get fresh meat, I get domination. Fair deal, standard. So I'm glad that they're not sort of revealing, they're not tipping their hand all at once here. It'll play out nicely.
See, this time period is very muddled to me because, and I think a lot of it has to do with the delays. There's so much activity going on. It's hard for me to understand how organized or distraught or spread thin the Nihil are. This doesn't make sense to me. I have no idea why they're here. I don't know what the importance of it is. I don't know why this place is of importance. I don't know why the Nihil would be here. I don't know why the Nihil would waste putting a single cell, a single person spy on a planet with Drengir spores doesn't match anything else that I have ever done. Like, so I don't know. I get that there are some related things in Race to Crash Point Tower, but there is a strategic reason as to why they're doing those things. somebody please explain if there's something that I'm missing here. Somebody please explain it to me, because I don't understand what the point, why the Nihil would be wasting resources that I don't think that they have, going to a planet that we don't know anything about, other than the fact, well, there's a Jedi outpost here.
If they come back in Volume 2 and reveal something similar to Volume 1 of the High Republic Adventures or the Rising Storm, where there's some important artifact or whatever on this planet, would this completely change your mind on the story? Okay.
Yes, it would.
Let me posit a solution to that. So what if it's because there was up until the end an important Jedi in Master Arkoff on the temple, or maybe it was because I think that this might be why. They were bringing refugees from ruined places from the emergences to Banshee to create new homes, because their homes were destroyed from the emergences. So what if they don't want any people surviving the attack or the emergences, or what if they, I don't know. I feel like one of those two things are the answer. I think I just don't know what they are, and I agree with you that it's a little problematic that we don't know which one it is. Is it because of the emergencies? Is it because of the Jedi? But I also feel like that is almost certainly going to be answered.
I do.
Next
Yeah.
volume.
Yeah.
I should put an asterisk next to that comment, in that this is only no more than half of the story. We're at least getting a volume 2, so it's very disingenuous of me to be so critical when we only have half the story. And that's a very good point, Jacob, that if there is something that we find out in the second half of the story, I would have liked a little bit more breadcrumbs, but that would absolutely change my opinion.
Yeah.
If it's found that there's something important here.
Yeah, and I will say, I put that out there, but I think even then, I think the simplest answer is the most obvious answer. It's just that this is a example of the Jedi and Republic expanding into the Outer Rim, and the Nihil don't like that, so they're trying to, serve as a destabilizing force. You said they don't have resources, but it takes one dude and some seeds. So I mean, at the same time, that's a pretty low investment to try and basically destroy a Jedi outpost.
Okay, but my rebuttal to your rebuttal is the Nihil are more about plundering than anything else. They're not about taking away. They don't want the Jedi in the area because the Jedi will keep them from being able to plunder and steal. They're not about just, oh, I don't like the Jedi. So you make a good point, but there's nothing to plunder, as far as we know. There's nothing to plunder here. And so it doesn't fit in with the Nihil that we know.
I'll say one more thing before, if we want to move on. I think in addition to beating back the Jedi from this region, I think it's very much in their interest, and I think we do see some seeds planted for this, to sow distrust in the citizens of the Outer Rim, because you see people questioning the Jedi. Do they really have it all together? Especially, when they're like, my stuff is missing. People are turning to wood. Can I really trust you? And the Jedi are like, yeah, we got it. If eventually they don't got it, then we have a problem. And you have that happen enough times, then you have a more systemic problem. So I think long term, it makes sense for the Nihil's motives if the Jedi are pushed out, not just by them, but by the people of the Outer Rim, and a peace deal with the Outer Rim goes through, then the Nihil just have a lot more free reign over the region. So I don't know.
Okay. All right, Caleb.
That's some good points there. So let's kind of talk about the big overarching question here. The title of this is The Edge of Balance, and that is something that is referred to pretty well throughout this series, is the concept of balance as something to be achieved. How do we feel like that theme played out over this story here? Do we feel like that when you look back out over it, we can see where they are trying to tease out the idea of achieving a balance between things here? How do you guys feel about this?
I think Lily was the embodiment of the title. I think her sort of trying to deal with, and she had this conversation with Master Arkoff a lot. how do I balance, wink, wink. How do I balance the sort of trepidation and fear that I feel with being a quote unquote good Jedi? At what point does my fear, hesitation, trepidation go too far into preventing me from doing my duty as a Jedi? I don't think we've answered that. I do not think it will be answered, because I feel like it's probably different for every Jedi. But one of the big themes was definitely Lily's sort of attitudes and hesitations, and I think that that's kind of what the title is sort of talking about. But at the same time, this could easily be applied to the Drengir, the Nihil, the galaxy, and their balance with the sort of chaos that has been slowly building up. I mean, it's kind of been a fast build when you think about it. Like, the emergence is bam, Velo, bam. We've got Drengir showing up everywhere, bam. So yeah, I think it could definitely have a double meaning for sure.
Yeah, for me, I think the edge of I did like how it's presented. I think balance can be interpreted in many different ways in Star Wars, but I always think it's interesting when it is discussed in depth. I think for me, the edge of balance is very simple, and I think it's literally a lightsaber. You have a blade has an edge, and that one of the more interesting discussions you had about balance was with the younglings Nima and Vivnia about the balance between a lightsaber, which can be a great tool for defense, but also a great tool for destruction. I think that was I don't think it was necessarily a new take, but I think it's still a very interesting take in Star Wars. I like seeing that fleshed out. And then also I do think it's interesting in the end, what solves the problem, what ends the conflict in this volume was not a lightsaber. It was just, flaming space kerosene. So, I was also completely off topic, but I was so incredibly I was like, they brought this thing to burn out next to the lake. I'm just waiting for the Drengir to just jump in the water and be like, all right.
I'm not gonna lie, until we talked about it, I thought that she just drowned the Drengir with the water from the lake.
No,
I'm not even gonna lie.
Like fire tornado with the Force.
Yeah. Oh, got you. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think the edge of balance has to do with Lily and her balance of responsibility and understanding and understanding your place in the world and knowing what you can do and what you should do. I'd love to think that there was more hidden meanings between the edge of balance, but again, we've talked about it earlier in the show. I don't get the feeling that the audience for this is looking for that. I don't think that this is a story meant to be that deep. I think this audience is a little bit younger, so I think it's more. I would love to that concept. I don't know if that was portrayed that eloquently in the second hand and second stories in this story.
Absolutely. So yeah, and the last question I want to have here is also kind of about the very last bit of the book here. There's kind of a bonus chapter here in the end, the Branchians, where it kind of just took a 20-ish page divulgence and kind of told a side story about the local natives there. And I think that was one of my favorite parts about this book, was that they had a small concentrated story so we could explore our main characters' dynamics between each other, see more dialogue with them, and kind of a side sort of thing where you had different paths and different arcs here. How'd you guys feel just overall about this quick little story?
I liked it.
That's fine. Yeah.
I treat it as the B story to Star Wars Adventures comic.
Yes,
it's not
exactly.
not of any consequence, but I think it's fun and definitely worth my time.
Yeah. One thing I kind of noticed here, and we were talking about the pacing of this novel and how it doesn't feel like there's a lot in here. I realized that this wasn't a lot of manga that you read here are published weekly, and they have so kind of like normal comics, they have to be, published, several regularly, and have to have like a cliffhanger and rising action for every 20 pages. They didn't really have it with this novel. Like the first, it totally complete story from beginning to end over, was it 120 pages? So that's probably why I felt like it had some pacing issues, because we're used to comic stories being bit by bit by bit, which is why I think I liked the last story here, because it was that kind of shorter form, self-isolated little arc here. So I don't know if I would have preferred it if there's like more of these sorts of like short stories, or the entire novel, the entire first volume was nothing but short, little isolated stories with a beginning and an end. I feel like that would have been maybe a little better if they concentrated more and published it as if it were a bunch of smaller interconnected stories.
100%. I was just thinking it would have served it better if it was, as Jacob said, the B story of a comic book than the forced epilogue tag on to a 122 page story that had a beginning and end. I liked it, but just like a lot of other things that we've talked about, it was a very jarring change of pace to go through all of the climax that we went through in the main story and then to go back to this little side story. Whereas if it was in a comic and it was just kind of like added on 4 or 5 extra pages added on, it would have felt a little bit more of a separate story and separate thing that I could have enjoyed a little bit differently than just like on top of all of this other things that are going on and everything that I've got to digest everything that's going on in the actual story, and I now have this and I got to figure out where it all fits.
Yeah, I think it's an issue of we're all from a Western society. We don't have that frame of reference. I think I read very little manga. I don't think this is I don't think this is completely uncommon to have like this little like aside. Sure. It's so you just have to come in with the mindset where like serious brain off. Let's just have a little fun for 5 pages. So
I agree. I mean, it was fun. Like, would I have rather gotten a few more pages, maybe establishing Lily and Kieran's relationship? Yeah, but sometimes it's good to have a little fun side story, and that's okay. I think maybe if we didn't have I won't speak for all of us, maybe if I didn't have so many issues with some of the sort of quickened character building relationships here, maybe I would feel differently, but I would definitely, I mean, if there was a choice, I would certainly rather have more character development in place of the side story. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was fun.
Absolutely. So I think it's that time. Let us re-rate this this volume, the Edge of Balance 1 again. We'll see if we raised our standings of this at all. Emma, you started us off last time. How do you still rate it? Is it still the same? What'd you say? 8.0 last time.
Yeah, I'm gonna stand at an 8.0. I thought it was good. I thought everybody brought up some really good points. Certainly my biggest issue is the lack of development between Lily and Kieran. I think that there's potential for a really awesome relationship there, for good or for bad or for medium. I don't know. But I do always, I've said it before, I always love when we get more stuff from Justina Ireland, even if she's co-writing stuff. Big fan of hers. So I hope she gets to write more stuff. And I think, comics and manga, I think it's a good medium for her, like, especially with the, was it Jabba the Hutt?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, Jabba the Hutt, she did a really great job with. So part of me wonders if some of these pacing issues are due to having 2 writers. I don't know if maybe they had different ideas for what they wanted to do and just didn't have enough time to sort of realize both of their ideas. So they had to kind of like combine them. I don't really know how that process works. We've only seen other authors sort of like pass on their characters to each other, and we haven't seen a tag team like this before. So yeah, I'm not sure how it works, but that might have contributed to some of the problems. This won't go down in history as my favorite thing from the High Republic, but it's still more High Republic and it's still more world building. We get some more Drengir, we get a tiny bit more Nile, we get some more Jedi. Like, I don't know, more High Republic is always good High Republic, I think. So 8.0 is my final score.
Absolutely. I was standing right at a 7.0. I think I'll bump it. I think I'll bump it up at a 7.5. I think, talking a little bit more about Lily's character and the themes of the bounce, I feel like that probably made me realize that there's a lot more points I really liked about her characterization and just the way she handles herself. So I think I'll raise it to a 7.5, especially just because the art is really good. Like, if you're not used to black and white and manga sort of things, it can be a little jarring, but I've read a decent chunk of that. So like getting into this, fantastic. There's some great character art moments. There's some really fun, like when the combat starts, you can do some really fun like tracing here. I think it really rose above a lot of the art standards with doing something different. So I'll say 7.5.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm going to stick with my 7.5. Yeah, I liked it overall. I'm very happy that they're doing this. I just wish the execution on the part of the plot and the pacing was a little bit better. I think one of the things that really stuck out to me after this roundtable is just like, a lot of these characters were really not consequential outside of Lily, or like, I didn't have strong opinions on hardly anyone outside of her, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing. Like Master Arkoff, Kieran, the younglings, they're like, they're just all kind of there for me. Like I legitimately couldn't remember anything that Kieran did outside of duel Lily once. So yeah, I'm hoping we get a lot more of them in the next volume and maybe some volumes to come. And I think I will definitely, I could definitely see myself rating this higher after reading those future installments. But for right now, I'm going to stick with a 7.5.
So I am still going to be bringing up the rear here, and I am going to bring mine up. I'm going to bring mine up to like, I'm just going to stick to the half score. I'm going to bring it up to a 6.5. I do like the elements that we talked about when it comes to the younglings and Kieran and the elements that they could bring. I don't have faith that it's going to be executed the way we as a Western society are used to it being executed in comics and books and whatnot. If you are a completionist, if you're a manga fan, I would highly recommend you pick it up. If you're looking for the high points and you don't, you're trying to decide, you're limited with your time, I can't think of a reason that you would want to pick this up. And something that also that we should note that Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong here, we are getting a second edition, but it is digital only.
Yeah,
Okay.
Volume 2 is digital only. I believe that comes out like very early February of 2022.
Yes. So and that also again plays into I don't consume any of my stuff digitally. So the fact that I've gotten this and I don't get and if I have to go get, in order to finish the story, I have to go get it digitally. There's not a lot in here that is making me want to eagerly pick up the second the other half of that. So, lots of good things. I love the Drengir. I love the art style. I think maybe if we were to do this with characters or in a setting that we already knew, and so we could have a little bit of background information coming into it, I think I would have enjoyed it more. But everything, not everything can be contrary to what some people believe, not everything can be a 9 or 10 or of those high scores. So this is just wasn't something that I preferred.
Yeah, that's
Jacob?
okay. Not everything has to be a home run,
Yeah.
And I think, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I read
think it's
it.
good. I am too. I'm glad. I think I've never read something that I didn't like and say, I am so mad that I wasted my time on that. Like there's always something good to come out of something, even if it wasn't your favorite thing in the world. And I think it's good to be able to have like civil, constructive conversations on things that we weren't, super hyped on. And I think that that's great.
So we we haven't mentioned it yet, and that's only because there weren't that many. But we can't have a roundtable without Jacob doing his best to come up with some Easter eggs. And so, Jacob, I see a very extensive list here.
Yes, you do. I'm not even gonna cut to myself for the solo cam. It's not worth it. I found out that Han Talos is mentioned in Out of the Shadows at some point, very briefly, because its Wikipedia page is like 3 sentences long. I have not finished that book yet still, so I cannot tell you for sure. I didn't put it in there, but Lily's saber hilts are basically like kendo swords, which is like a martial arts a martial art. If you look in the like cross guard or whatever, like the circular cross guard, it has like the High Republic logo, which you can see pretty easily on the cover. So
Oh, cool. I didn't notice that.
yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
There you go. That's all I got.
All right.
Like a Denny's breakfast, a 2-egg omelet.
All right. Well, on that note, I think that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Cosmic Force. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, or you can go ahead and hit that like button here on YouTube, where we broadcast every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Be sure to also visit utini.com for reviews, articles, and news for the entire expanded universe, whether it's mangas, comics, books, you name it. We have that covered for you. We also encourage you to join our Utini Discord community by going to utini.com/discord. And you can also help support the show by heading to patreon.com/utini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. A special thank you to OK Endar, Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, Carl Sander, and Earl Q on our Jedi High Council, and Kyle Hickman, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command. Thank you again for your continued amazing support. Remember, you can tweet the show at Cosmic Force Show or the host individually. I'm at Ty Rags. Emma is at Irma Jedi 26. Caleb is at Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch. Thank you again to Emma, Caleb, and Jacob for hosting with me tonight. Thank you to all of you wonderful people who joined us live and were on the chat. We had a very interesting chat tonight, and I really encourage am appreciative of everybody that was a part there. And we also want to give a special thank you to our listeners wherever and whenever you are joining us. We do appreciate your support. Until next week, may the Force be with you.